Anyway, welcome back to Liquid Lunch. It's me, Hugh, and Jen Frankel, of course, my co-host, author of Undead Redhead, is in the room with me, and we're joined now by Neil Peters from Calgary. He's the founder and CEO of something called Crowdbucks, which is, I guess, it's a new alternative currency, right, Neil?
More or less. It's a little more than that, but it's the currency is part of the overall initiative. Let's put it that way.
Okay, great. So, I mean, and I was telling you when we chatted yesterday, I've kind of been all around this alternative currency business for a long time. And of course, we've seen the rise of cryptocurrencies in the last few years. So, do you want to just give us maybe a little bit of introduction to yourself and how how you came to found this thing called Crowdbucks? Then we can get into what it's all about.
All right. Well, ever since I was very young, I've been very suspicious, if you will, of our current monetary and financial systems, wondering why everybody's in debt. I mean, the government's in debt, everybody's in debt, businesses are in debt. And I always wondered who we were in debt to and why. And so my background here is more or less IT. I've been doing computers since the early 70s when I worked with IBM. And I've been more or less independent ever since. But I've investigated the monetary situation. And the bottom line is that we simply don't need banks anymore, is the conclusion that I came to. That people can create their own money, their own currencies, and that are interest-free and value-backed better than the current monetary system that we have. And we have the technology to do it. The internet and other related technologies have brought about a huge change that has made this now possible. So Crowdbucks is more or less an initiative to implement that concept that allows people to create their own types of currencies and transact with those currencies in private marketplaces, public and private marketplaces.
And I think that's a great point, though, too, because I mean we've seen kind of in the global monetary system starting out with gold and silver-backed currencies to I guess fiat currencies, and the thing that's bothered me about it, so what is backing our current currencies? And it's really just people valuing it in the marketplace. But if people lose trust in the system, in the players, and the thing that gets me about it is even gold and silver don't make sense to me to back up a currency because people can't eat gold, they can't. There's no intrinsic value really to the gold. Well, what is valuable is people's productive capacity, and that's something that everybody has, and something that can be used to back something real that can back a currency.
Exactly. That's all currency is based on trust in future value. And the current currency that's created 97%, according to most statistics, by banks at interest, basically cripples us. It enslaves us.
Absolutely,
and
yeah.
It's not backed by any monetary value. It's only backed by a blind trust in that the next person in the line is going to accept it. So there's two types of currencies, basically. One type of currency is what I call a community currency, and there's any national currency is essentially a community currency. It's accepted by anyone in the community. And then there's private currencies, and the private currencies are more like vouchers or gift certificates or a theater pass or something along that line. Canadian Tire money is an example. That's issued by a specific entity with a value attached to it, and you can only redeem it with that particular entity. So, we're in the first camp as far as money that's in a community. How that money is created and how it's backed is a critical issue, and currently it's backed by nothing, and it's issued essentially only by banks to enrich themselves. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and I always like to make the point too that I mean, people talk about the value of the free market and the marketplace, but when you're talking about a national currency, uh, even if the management of that currency has sort of been handed down to the private banks, it's still a monopoly currency. So that if that national currency, the Canadian dollar, is mismanaged to the point where it loses its value, it's gonna, because it's a monopoly. There's no free market to kind of pick up, where people can choose to move to a better managed currency than the one currency we're told to have to use.
Well, the real problem though is that what we've got a monetary system that works on the idea of debt. So there's a finite number of amount of money, but the banks are able to create as much debt as they want. So there's not enough money in the world to pay off all the debts that people owe. So
Absolutely.
it seems to me that in a very real way, what the banks are running is like the ultimate Ponzi scheme.
Absolutely. Yes. It's exactly that. And money is artificially scarce, just like gold is. So they have become commodities that people will kill each other over. And the banks like it when money is scarce. People have to basically fight each other to get their share of the money, and they work harder and harder and do other things that ultimately just enrich the owners of the bank.
Right.
Because the banks don't really create, unlike real businesses, they don't actually create anything.
Well, they
And
have
so,
products, but
no,
the
no,
products are
those
not
are
really
no, but
products.
that interest
Yeah.
is for what? What am I paying the interest for? It's
you're-
like not a real product, and yet everybody's like running around. And now Pierre or Justin with this infrastructure bank is going to hand over our national assets to foreign creditors as collateral, which is completely unnecessary. Okay, that's another topic. Sorry, Neil.
I want to hear about this. Yeah, but what's Crowdbucks then, and how does this make things better for us?
So Crowdbucks is a commerce system that is comprised of two main parts. One is a marketplace like eBay, and the other is a banking system, and they're tied together. So the idea with Crowdbucks is this platform can be applied to any number of different scenarios, from a traditional trade network, a community trade mechanism, crowdfunding platform. There's a whole bunch of uses for it. Anywhere where value is traded, this could be used. So that encompasses a pretty big area. And the idea is that the platform can be implemented. There can be many instances of it with many different marketplaces. Each marketplace is essentially private to the members. Members are typically invitation only, so there's an element of trust because, again, all currency is based on trust. So current members invite new members in to trade with them, and then they essentially just create their own money. And there can be many different types of money. You can use the private internal money system that essentially can't be stolen because all it is a ledger of pluses and minuses as far as who's spent what and who's supplied what. So the people that are involved in the marketplace simply agree on who gets the money, what the money is, how much of it there is, what costs there are in trading in the system, etc. And again, it can be applied for a whole bunch of different areas, different supply chains, small communities, large communities. They can be networked together so that it's essentially a network of marketplaces. And if you're not a member of a particular marketplace, you use a different type of currency to buy from that marketplace than you do from your internal marketplace. So essentially, again, the two types of currency come into play, where you can buy from your local community, or you can buy from other communities. But either the bottom line is that it's a better system than what the banks are giving us now, and the time is there that that because of the internet and other technology advances that we can do this now. It's real, and I have a prototype developed that I can demonstrate basically that integrates those functions and a bunch of other functions into a system that is greater than the sum of its parts.
So what it really does is it takes commerce down to its basic level. It basically says that that you need this and you can do this, and you make an exchange to get from one thing to the other. Is that kind of, in a very basic way, what we're talking about?
Well, no, that's more of a barter system where it's a bilateral trade. This is multilateral. That's where currency comes in. So I can buy from you, and you can buy from somebody else, who can buy from somebody else, who can buy from me. So you don't need the coincidental want
Right.
on the two sides to do a trade. So it's not barter. This is commerce. This is, it's just using different types of currencies. And already today, many trades are made around the world that don't involve traditional currencies. They just use credits that this country knows that country, basically owes them so many credits, and they could do exchanges, or they could do an exchange with another country and have it multilateral, etc.
There still is an element of trust in this system, though, is there? Like you still have to believe that this is the ledger is still the sort of the unit of trust. Then.
Yeah, and again, that trust is founded basically in your community, that you know the people that you're dealing with on a local level, and that's the basis of it. There's lots of elements in trust as far as reputation, which will become extremely important in the future as far as commerce is concerned. So you know who you're dealing with. But then there's other elements that eliminate the need for trust, such as the cryptocurrencies that can essentially be used to transfer value from one place to another. And whether you're using something like Bitcoin, or whether you're using a private cryptocurrency to trade between perhaps a group of marketplaces, or whatever the case may be, it's flexible enough that it can handle any of those scenarios.
So Crowdbucks is actually a complement to cryptocurrencies instead of being a replacement for it, then?
Crowdbucks is an integration of a bunch of different services. And essentially we can use things like Bitcoin. We can create our own cryptocurrencies using other platforms. For example, we've created a coin that we're going to be selling here soon that's what I call value backed. So it's backed by our promise that we will accept it in the future for payment on our services that we provide. So people can buy this coin in advance. They will pay a discount for its pegged value. The value of the coin will be pegged initially at a penny, for example. This could be any value, but this coin will be pegged at 1 cent, and it will be sold at a discount. It might be 20% off, or 10% off, or 50% off, or whatever we decide under the circumstances. And so then we will accept that coin in the future, either at its floor value of a cent, or whatever it trades at on the open market. And if that currency goes up like Bitcoin from essentially nothing up to $1,000 or whatever, we'll certainly accept it at $1,000. It would make sense for us to do that under any circumstance. So that's a typical crowdfunding type scenario, and where we simply issue our own private currency that only we will accept, but you can trade with anybody. And then when you're ready to spend it, you just come and you do special advertising on our system, or transaction fees, or whatever you're paying for. That money is basically an advanced sale of our services, is what it represents. And again, that type of token can be applied to almost any scenario that includes, proof of value exchange.
So Neil, I mean, we're talking. You're saying this is an integrated group of technology strategies, whatever. But do you have your own blockchain for this coin?
So the CV coin that we have used uses an existing blockchain. It uses the Bitcoin blockchain, but so it rides on top of the Bitcoin blockchain. It uses a process developed by a team of developers from Omni, and basically it leverages the Bitcoin blockchain. So you don't need a separate blockchain. Blockchains are difficult to deal with. So by riding on the Bitcoin blockchain, we can provide any number of currencies actually that do the same type of thing, and without the need for specialized wallets and specialized blockchain systems and mining and all the rest of it.
So then how would, like, for example, would somebody who's using this, see, I mean, we can talk about this all day
because it fascinates
because
you
the
too,
details matter
especially.
and how
Yeah.
it works matters a lot to me because, but so my question, I guess, is, does somebody need a Bitcoin wallet to use the Crowdbucks, or how does that work?
There'll be a couple of different options. You can use a desktop wallet, or you can use a web wallet. And our system will basically incorporate the web wallet. And so you could have it in one place or both places. You could have a multi-signature type of system where it's both on the web and on your desktop if you want, so that it's doubly secure, basically. It can't happen without approval from both places, etc.
Okay, so let's put ourselves in the position of a potential user of Crowdbucks, like a business, like our business, for example. How do we use Crowdbucks? How does any business get involved, use it, and how can they benefit?
Well, there's a whole bunch of different scenarios. One of the key scenarios is what's called a business-to-business trade network. And basically, that's a group of businesses that get together. They essentially trust each other. They're typically in a local community. And so in any town or city, basically, the group of businesses get together. They all join. It's ultimately an affinity type of network. And it allows them to trade with each other preferentially, and they don't have to use any of their existing cash. So they can have an additional line of credit that's agreed on. It's called mutual credit. So the owners, the member owners of the trade network, every member is essentially an owner of their own network. They decide basically what kind of money they're going to use, what kind of accounts they have, what kind of transactions take place, etc. And then they simply trade with each other. So A buys from B, and B can buy from C, and C can buy with X, who can buy back with A. And as long as the balances are kept in check, and there's certainly limits and whatever that are put on that, again, decided on by the members but implemented by the software. As long as everything's good and everybody's doing their part, then it's a great working system. There's been a number of these systems that have existed in the past. Many exist today. There's probably thousands of business-to-business trade networks. But the issue there is that they're privately owned, and they're typically used, again, like a bank, to enrich the owners of the particular system. So the difference with Crowdbucks is that members are owners, and they profit from the system directly, rather than making somebody else a lot of money. So they support each other. So it's a mutual aid network. Oh, excuse me, I think I just lost my video. I'm going to have to change something here.
Okay, well, we still had a still picture of you, so if you could fix that, that's great. Meanwhile, we'll keep talking here. So then so that sounds great. So what does the Crowdbucks organization like what do you guys provide to help people to do that, to organize these marketplaces?
Hang on just one second while I switch this here. That's a different camera, but I imagine that's working.
Oh yeah, that's good. Yep,
Okay.
got you back.
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question, please?
Well, okay, so it sounds great, the marketplaces. But so, what is the Crowdbucks, or what do you guys provide to make that happen, or help people to do that?
Well, essentially, at this point in time, we've developed prototype software that we can host or have hosted somewhere else and help people to set up and manage the system. So what we do is typically we'll be looking for specific networks that already exist and that can be integrated with the concept. So I have a couple in mind. For example, indigenous communities could adopt Crowdbucks. So within each tribe and between tribes, etc., they could use their own money. The legal cannabis industry that's emerging in the U.S. and in Canada. In the U.S., they're having great problems with the banks that don't want to deal with them, and so they're using wheelbarrows full of money type of thing, Brinks trucks full of money actually. All deals are typically cash, and everybody has a big safe, and they have to hire a Brinks truck to take money down the street, basically, because so that type of scenario where there's an existing network of people, Crowdbucks can be applied in that type of scenario very effectively, I believe.
So you're looking to work with existing networks, by the sounds of it, and this is actually a tool that can actually help those networks be better and stronger networks. And you mentioned when we were speaking the other day also about the network effect, and you want to take advantage of that, which is great. The network effect being the essential idea that one network that has everything in it is better than a whole bunch of networks that have only part of everything in it. So you're creating you're facilitating networks kind of connecting with each other. Is that accurate? Can you expand on that?
Yeah, again, a community currency is typically used to keep value, resources, money, etc., in the community. So the idea is to have a number of small networks that, a network typically is as valuable as it is big. So it has to reach a certain, minimum point in order to really be effective. You need, 50 to 100 businesses in a traditional business-to-business network for there to be enough value, enough selection, essentially, enough places where you can spend your money, your trade dollars. And but if they're too small, they simply don't provide enough value. If they're too big, they have issues with trust, that you don't necessarily know who you're dealing with. And so there's an optimal range of size. But if you need something that's not in your particular network, the idea is that you should be able to go to any other network and put out a call, if you will, that you're looking for a particular item, and you would get an automated feedback that this network has three that are of this description, another network over here has unlimited supply of a different description, or whatever it might be, so that you're not stuck within your particular community, and you can go outside as needed.
Right. That all sounds pretty cool. It seems to me that the biggest problem with the banks, of course, is that there's a profit motive, that banks basically make a lot of money off their customers. They make money from service fees and from investing your money with other people, without, obviously without your oversight. Is
Right.
there any kind of profit motive built into this, or is it actually without somebody making money from the system itself?
Well, the big problem with the banks that I can see is the golden rule, which is those with the gold make the rules.
Yes.
And they have made a lot of rules to enrich themselves. The interest itself and other basic tricks that they play with the currency, um, as you had mentioned before, is a Ponzi scheme. It really is. There's always more debt than there is money to pay the debt. That's how they make money artificially scarce. And all money in history has failed. And this money that we have today will fail. And it's failing now. We can see that it's failing. The 2008 crisis, for example, financial crisis, was one big crack that they had to fill. And now they're trying to fill other cracks with other schemes, if you will, quantitative easing and zero interest rates and all the other things that they're implementing to try to prop up a failing economy. And it's failing because there's simply not enough money to pay all the debt. So if we don't grow at a substantial rate every single year, then the economy will tumble. It will go down like dominoes. And there's no doubt that that is going to happen at some point in time. We're just trying to make sure that we have a platform like ours in place before it becomes a crisis and the economy is dead. So this type of thing can be complementary, it can run alongside it. It could also be a full economy on its own. This is the way banks should be. There's no interest. Interest on currency is usury. It's biblical. It's been condemned by intelligent people throughout the ages. So interest is not a good thing typically. And all it does is it makes the rich richer and the poor into slaves. And our children are now economic slaves, debt slaves, if you will. That they're inheriting a big debt that they are going to have to work off in order to satisfy interest and compound interest and money lent twice and all the other things that cause economic collapse.
Right.
The other thing about interest is it rewards people who don't produce anything, i.e. the bankers.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the whole idea. And that's the same problem with a lot of the cryptocurrencies and things that are around now, is that a lot of these things are just extensions of the same corrupt system. And they're more Ponzi schemes. Bitcoin's a great tool. The blockchain is an amazing game changer, essentially. The blockchain will make things totally different. But Bitcoin is very flawed as a currency because it rewards the people who can burn the most electricity and afford the biggest computers and to mine these Bitcoin, and then everybody else down the line pays for that. And so it's a very wasteful system that rewards the rich. And at this point in time, I just read an article a little while ago that said that 99% of all Bitcoins are owned by 1% of the Bitcoin population. And, so it's just more of the same. So, we don't need miners to create our currency for us. We can create our currency ourselves at zero cost. We don't have to pay $500 for a Bitcoin to send it to somebody else. We can just create our own currencies and fund them through the backing of the people that are the members.
Okay, so Neil, we don't have a lot of time left, at least not today, but I want to ask you because it seems to me, and I've been involved in some of these currencies, but the difficulty is really getting from starting point to the point where you've got a network of businesses that are willing to accept the currency, that are willing to trade for the currency, and that sort of thing. So what's the strategy, very briefly, to get from point zero to a robust network where people can buy almost any kind of good or service? And how close, is it launched now? Can people sign up now?
No, yeah, we have a prototype built, but this is complex. And the idea is to use what's called an API, an application programming interface, so that anybody can tap into this type of system, and with the appropriate security and things in place. So it's a multi-layered type of scenario that uses a bunch of back-end services, and supplies a bunch of front ends, whether it be smartphones or desktops or tablets or whatever it is, and on many different platforms, through this application programming interface, which is where all the business logic sits to be able to connect the different services in intelligent ways, in useful ways. So the strategy basically is to find some people that are interested in creating networks. And we found, I've already set up a trading network just to understand what it was all about. It was called the Corporate Trade Network. And we found it fairly easy to sign up people, that most people understand the value, that it's just a reciprocal exchange mechanism, that you're dealing with local businesses typically, or businesses that you would typically deal with anyhow. And so you need a critical mass, but to make it really effective, but it can start with 2 people. And you can have an exchange where you could do promotional services for me, and I could do IT services for you, and we would just have a currency that we create in order to keep track of who's done what. And so that's kind of like a barter system, but you're using it as just an accounting system, and that's essentially all banks do. So it's just like the banks, except it's better. It's all integrated. It's eBay and PayPal and the Federal Reserve and all the rest of it combined.
So for people watching this today, what can they do? What can they do today, if anything, to kind of get the ball rolling on using Crowdbucks?
Well, the next thing I need to do here is get some more resources going to continue the development. I've spent the last 3 years, and ultimately I sold the farm in order to pay for this initial development, to get the prototype working. So at this point I have to do a crowdfunding campaign. I've actually got 2 crowdfunding campaigns planned, one at Indiegogo that will raise hopefully some conventional money, and then a second one that's actually selling the coin, and so it's a Bitcoin type of idea that is value backed. That's the difference between what we're offering and the other types of cryptocurrencies, is that it's backed by our promise. So by doing those 2 crowdfunding campaigns and appealing to some of the people that that believe in the concept, to get involved and help out, so we could use programmers, we could use agents and brokers and salespeople and marketing people and a whole bunch of different services that they could integrate with us. Essentially, we could help them to sell their services, and they could help us to sell ours, so to create ours and finish ours off. So that's what I need to do at this point in time, more than anything, is I've run out of funds, so I simply need to get some more, and the crowdfunding campaign hopefully will do that.
All right. So, well, it's a very exciting project, Neil. And so I just want to say thanks for all the work you put in so far, and thanks for joining us here today. And let's give out the URLs for people who want to maybe participate in the crowdfunding campaigns, or maybe get in touch with you and help in some other kind of way.
Well, crowdbucks.com is the old website. It's the one that still has most of the text on it. It's kind of outdated, but we have a new website that's not quite ready for prime time. It's more or less a beta test type of system at this point. So crowdbucks.com has the basic information, and I'll be publishing here soon on crowdbucks.com the crowdfunding URLs at Indiegogo and beyond. So.
Okay. All right. So crowdbucks.com. So check it out, to everybody. I've checked it out, and it looks great. And it got me curious to get in touch with Neil. So Neil, I'm actually probably going to call you up, not on the air, and continue this conversation. But I just want to say thank you for coming on the show today.
It's great.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you both for allowing me on.
Okay.
Appreciate it.
So we'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
And
Bye bye.
bye bye.